What's going on, everybody, and welcome in to this early edition, doubleheader edition of Card Central 365 here on STL Sports Central, which is presented by Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And all the content here on STL Sports Central is brought to you by and powered by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Brenden Schaeffer. That's Grant Salsman. Grant, you're the only person who can pull me away from a week at the Ozarks to talk a little baseball just for you, buddy. But I'm also excited to get into it today with the Cardinals wrapping up their series with the White Sox with a doubleheader. We're still kind of basking in the glow of that offensive performance from a couple of days ago on game one. But what are you looking forward to about today's series? Big news potentially with Derek Gould of the Post-Dispatch reporting that we will see Michael McGreevy for game two, Erick Fedde for game one, according to Derek Gould's report. Could be a profitable day for the Cardinals, who could really afford to beat up on a bad White Sox team.
Yeah, I think a couple thoughts there with McGreevy. I'm excited to see him get another chance against a lesser opponent. I think it was the Dodgers he went out against.
Yeah.
And he got touched up a little bit, and that's going to happen as a young pitcher against the best offense in baseball. So I'm excited to see him quickly get another chance to prove himself a little bit. I also think this is a little bit of a blessing in disguise. Maybe it buys Sonny Gray an extra day of rest, buys possibly Matthew Liberatore an extra day. Things get pushed back a little bit. But also at the same time, the percentage of doubleheader splits is pretty – most of the times in the MLB, that doubleheader gets split. So I think it's a little disappointing. It really felt like if the Cardinals play yesterday, then play today, just a normal series, they sweep the White Sox. So hopefully they can get over the hump and win both games today.
I honestly think it works out pretty well for them. We've heard so much about how the Cardinals are dealing with a lack of off days, and this off day wasn't exactly planned. But I think you're right. When it comes to the pitching plan, it allows them to do a few different creative things and get Michael McGreevy in there, because we've known for a while that he is deserving of being a big league arm. It's been a numbers game as the main reason that he hasn't consistently been in this Cardinals rotation. But every time we've seen him, I've largely liked what I've seen, and I think Cardinals fans feel the same. His outing against the Mets in early May is another doubleheader situation, was astoundingly good. And then the Dodgers game, he had some trouble, but found a way still in that outing, in that environment against that type of team, to get through 6 innings, which I thought was notable. And it'll be maybe a treat to see him against, look, where you respect your opponents, etc. But we know the White Sox and the Dodgers have different looking lineups, and maybe it's something McGreevy can take advantage of in his last start for Memphis, which this is on regular turn for him, which is another blessing in disguise about when the rain came. He was 6 innings, no runs, 6 strikeouts in AAA. So he's still been sharp in the outings that he's pitched. We saw him the previous turn in the big leagues, and now I think you get an opportunity to see him maybe a little earlier in June than you would have. I think he had one more start in him with the Cardinals pending, but now another opportunity to see him today, which is going to be great. What do you think we're going to see, though, from the lineup that really kind of came back to life in the last game against the White Sox? Brenden Donovan in there with a 4 for 5 day, which was great to see. You're still getting great production from Ivan Herrera. A little bit of a new look to the lineup now with everybody healthy again, but I think that's something that can really serve the Cardinals well moving forward if they keep Donovan up at the top.
Yeah, I think it's interesting just with the way that you're going to try to rest guys in 2 games who gets off their feet in game 1 versus game 2. Yeah. So I think that is, if you're looking for cons of the doubleheader, could be one is that you might not get the full lineup you would have gotten both days. But Donovan should play both games. I mean, as you said, it's an off day. I love seeing him at the top. I know that I think when the Cardinals lineup is at their best, and I want to hear your opinion on this, it's Lars Nootbaar at the top, because I think when both of those guys are producing well, their on-base percentage is about the same. Lars Nootbaar finds a few more walks than Donovan, but obviously he's been ice cold, so a move had to be made. I love Donovan at that 2-3 spot with guys on base, because I think he's the best at when the table's set for him, he's going to drive you in. But having him as the table setter isn't a bad option either. And obviously he's been very good in that role, going 4 for 5 on Tuesday.
Yeah, I think Lars Nootbaar, when he was playing like Lars Nootbaar, was as good of a leadoff bet as you're going to find. But we have to be able to acknowledge and realize where he is right now in his game. A lot of Cardinals fans feel the way that Jerry feels here, saying that Lars Nootbaar does not need to be in the lineup at all. And I think that was true for a couple of days, but I also don't think the Cardinals are going to permanently give up on Lars Nootbaar as a result of a week that it was like Grant was up there batting for a week.
Whoa.
Like he was 0 for 23 with 10 strikeouts or 13 strikeouts, excuse me, in a 5-game stretch before they benched him. Grant, would you strike out more or less than 13 times if you had 23 at bats?
If you told me I put the ball in play 10 times in the MLB on 23 opportunities, I wouldn't be that upset about it. And he probably got on base a couple times,
He did walk. He had one walk, so I don't know if you're getting the walk if you're filling in for Newt. But understandably, the Cardinals have kind of eased off of him a little bit. They've lowered him in the lineup when he's in there. He's not in there every day. I argued with somebody on Twitter yesterday because I made a comment on I think it was a post by Brenden Kiley where the comment was like, Ollie's got a tough job right now with all the guys he's got to fit into his lineup. Especially with how Alec Burleson's going. He's an everyday player for me. I mean, if he's going to continue to swing the bat like this, Alec Burleson has absolutely got to be in there. He was 3 for 5 with a home run in the game on the game 1 of this series on Tuesday, whatever day that was. And he's got to be in that lineup. So when you have a Jordan Walker that you want to fit in, when you have a Gorman that you want to fit in, you're trying to kind of find that push-pull. And that was a day where, okay, if Lars Nootbaar is not going to be in your lineup, that's another name that was a fixture. I'm not saying he's the best hitter on the team. I'm not saying he's the best leadoff hitter in baseball. Lars Nootbaar, over the course of his career, has been an above-average hitter. Yeah. There's a weird, for me, for Cardinals fans, a weird level of disdain for Lars Nootbaar that when he's slumping, which every player goes through, and Lars Nootbaar was going through it and kind of still is going through it to a degree as bad as you possibly can in baseball, people are like, he's never been good. He doesn't belong on a big league roster. He should be in AAA. Like all this crazy talk for a guy who, for his career, has a 111 OPS plus, which means for 1,694 plate appearances in the big leagues, Lars Nootbaar has been an above-average hitter by 11%. If you give me, Grant, a lineup of 9 guys with a 111 OPS plus, in like requisite defense and requisite pitching, I will win a ton of games. That's just a fact. So to say, well, Lars Nootbaar doesn't belong in the lineup is legitimately crazy. Now, what has to happen is Lars Nootbaar needs to be eased back in. He doesn't need to play every day right now. I think he needs to sort of be on the Jordan Walker plan, where for a while Walker was playing a day, sitting a day, working on some things behind the scenes with the hitting coaches, and then back in there the next day to implement it. We've kind of seen that a little bit. I imagine we'll see Nootbaar in one of the games today. I wouldn't think we'd be in there for both of them. Jerry continuing on Newt, which I'm cool with. Let's go back and forth. Game after game, Newt's 0 for 4, 0 for 5. He was hot at the start of the season, but has been inconsistent the rest of the year. I disagree. I think he was pretty good at the start of the season, and he has been absolutely dreadful for the last few weeks. Like, he fell off a cliff. And sure, you could look at his numbers since May 1st and say, well, they're bad since May 1st. Yeah, because he was absolutely terrible for the last couple of weeks, which is really dragging down his overall numbers. But Grant, his overall numbers are a 94 OPS plus. He's 6% below league average. You've got guys in the Cardinal lineup every day that nobody's talking about that are lower than that on a regular basis. Lars Nootbaar needs to be slowly integrated back into the lineup. I think when it's all said and done, he'll play more games the rest of the season than he sits, and it won't be close. And I think he will round back into the player that's taken at least a walk per game. He's not striking out hardly at all. That's how you knew Lars Nootbaar was struggling, is the Ks went up substantially. You don't have to lead off if he's in this version to your original point, Grant. Like, I liked it when he was leading off. He needs a change, and the Cardinals needed a change, but I think Donovan can serve well until somebody like Newt brings it back, or until a Victor Scott gets on base a little bit more consistently to be considered for the top spot himself. I just had to go on the Nootbaar rant because it's been a topic that it's just weird to me how much people like harp on that topic specifically.
No, I understand it. And like, I'm curious with today how the outfield's going to be constructed. You would think maybe it'll be if you're going, normally full lineup in game 1, which you would have done on Tuesday, is maybe do you put Scott with Walker and Burleson out there? Do you put Nootbaar in left and put Burleson in right? And then game 2, put Walker in right, maybe Barrero in center, Scott in left. Like I'm curious how this lineup is going to be constructed, particularly in outfield in both games. Because we've seen Scott come in and play a corner outfield position before. He can do it.
Behind Ciani, I think that would be the only way he would do that, though.
Yeah,
maybe not even.
But can Barrero, because I think Barrero will play a game, can he play a corner outfield spot? I would assume so.
Yeah, I wouldn't need him to play. Ciani, I mean, you wish Ciani was the answer to that question. I hear your point, though, because they haven't taken Victor Scott and played him multiple times with a doubleheader every time. They're often looking to get him off his feet for one of the games. And another question of, like, who's going to be the catchers for this one. Joseph says, hey, Arenado's still here. Herrera can't catch. It would free up a spot. We've known that all year. It's totally true. It's just what it is, though. I mean, Herrera is deficient behind the plate regarding, I think several areas that the Cardinals look for, mainly throwing and managing the run game. But I think Pedro Pages does such a good job in a lot of the areas that the Cardinals just aren't really – they're not daily having that thought of, oh, man, can we get some more time for catcher for Herrera? I know it would be what makes the most sense because Pages is not a bat that you're looking to get into your lineup. I totally understand that. But it's just the nature of the beast. I imagine Herrera will catch a game today, though. I mean, if you're having 2 of them, he'll probably be behind there for 1. That maybe is the game, Grant, where you are able to fit Lars Nootbaar in, Gorman in, Walker in. It'll depend on the pitching plan on the other side, too, I imagine. And by the way, I had credited the Post-Dispatch. It does look to be official, at least on the team website, MLB.com, has McGreevy against Vasil. Don't know who that is. In game 2, Fedde and Sean Burke going in game 1. So those do appear to be the official pitching matchups. But, yeah, I hear the point, Grant. I'm sure you hear it a lot when it comes to Herrera. And I just think for now the Cardinals are content with the challenge of that because they believe they're going to get more bang for their buck with Pages catching 60% of the games the rest of the way.
Which it's understandable. Pages' defense outweighs his bat. And it outweighs Herrera's defense as well. I think the only struggle is that when Herrera's DHing, obviously, it's hard to get Gorman, Burleson, and Walker all in the. So I'll be really curious how they get all 3 of those guys and Nootbaar in the lineup at some point today. Because I think they'll all start a game, whether it's Donovan maybe getting a game off his feet and Gorman plays second or DHs. The thing is, I don't think they really trust Burleson or Walker in left field. So I think that is also a little conflicting because they
won't do it to Walker. They might do it for Burleson though in a pinch.
I'm just thinking like also something that's interesting with the outfield depth is it feels like for the last 5 years it's been man. Do the Cardinals just have way too many outfielders? They have 5-6 guys who are all pretty good in the outfield and we can't play them all. Now it's like, oh, the Cardinals have 2-3 outfielders. Maybe is Alec Burleson even really an outfielder? No, but he plays outfield because
but he's a hitter.
That's what I'm saying. It's just things have flipped totally, and now you're struggling where Walker and Burleson are pretty restricted on their defense. Where do you put them? I mean, I guess you could get Contreras off his feet for a game, and Burleson plays first.
You might see that. Yeah. If you get him in the game twice. But then it's like, is Herrera DHing? Because you probably should bat Herrera both games.
And you probably should bat Contreras both games too.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Like, I'm not disagreeing with Cardinals fans who say, hey, here's the math. I see the math. I think the Cardinals see the math. They just feel strongly enough about that situation behind the plate that they keep it this way. And Jerry making another point about Nootbaar sort of being the odd man out. I want to see Scott, Walker, Burley, Gorman in the lineup. So do I. I think largely that is what you're going to see. And that's why I think the every other day plan works for Newt, because if he's like, take it for a couple more weeks, if it's literally 2 weeks of every other day, that one day can be the one day in 2 weeks that Donovan sits, that Contreras sits, that Arenado sits. And then you're finding extra ways to get those guys in there while largely keeping Burleson, Gorman in the lineup every day. I think they'll face a tough lefty every now and again where, okay, that makes it have some sense for those guys or one of those guys to sit. But yeah, Newt, people think I'm saying, and somebody said, oh, you love Newt so much, he's your favorite player. I really just look at the numbers and say, look, Nootbaar has been a helpful player to the Cardinals more often than not for 5 years. He doesn't have to be the savior. And I think part of the narrative around him where people are quick to judge him more harshly is because he had this international fame from, World Baseball and everything. So I think that probably plays into it a little bit, to be honest. But for me, it doesn't. I don't have emotional feelings about this team the way maybe people think I do. I am looking at the numbers and trying to dictate what I think is most appropriate. This question about Herrera's defense, I think he was always a bat first kind of guy. I mean, I remember anytime you had asked about Ivan Herrera coming up through the system, it's like, well, he really loves to hit. He likes to hit. We're going to see what it looks like behind the plate. I think you can be careful, and this is maybe a lesson to be learned with guys like Jimmy Crooks and Leonardo Bernal right now, is like whatever you hear about those guys defensively is going to be in passing. Like, you're not learning really about the defenders behind the plate that a catcher is at AA or maybe even AAA until you get a little bit closer to the big leagues and like they get some big league camp experience so that the big league staff can actually see them. Those guys, you can say, oh, he does a great job with this, that, and the other. Until you talk about game planning at the big league level, there is a huge, huge shift when it comes to that. And so I think that always for Herrera was a big part of the conversation. Not a question, but maybe at least a big part of the conversation.
I think, too, it was a little bit of that final year of Yachty when Yachty wasn't moving very well back there, that people were like, oh, Herrera, he's a lot better than Yachty defensively right now. Well, that's because Yachty had the knees of a 75-year-old man trying to catch back. And he was still above league average, just that when you had a young 20-something-year-old and Herrera back there, you could see the difference a lot more. But also, I want to go back to the last point real quick is, this is a good problem to have. I feel like a lot of Cardinals fans are complaining. Obviously, Nootbaar sitting or slumping isn't great, but Jordan Walker's been hitting, and then he got injured, and he came back and has looked okay, and is at bat sense. Alec Burleson is red hot. I mean, you wouldn't have this problem of where can we fit these guys in the lineup if Burleson still wasn't hitting and Walker was slumping. You would just say, okay, we'll play Walker against the lefties and Burleson against the righties, and that's fine. And
if that,
they're both hitting very well, which is an awesome problem to have if you're the Cardinals, is if you have too many good bats that you can't get in the lineup. That's what good teams do. They have guys that are on their bench that would get in lineups elsewhere. So,
and over his past 8 starts, Nolan Gorman is another name that I would call him pretty well red hot.
Yes.
I mean, he's got 3 multi-hit games over his past 8 starts, a couple of 3 RBI games. He's hit 2 home runs over his past 5 starts. He's scoring runs. He's taking his bases. He's got 4 walks in that stretch. And the strikeouts, only 1 game in that stretch was really a rough strikeout game for him, June 11th against the Blue Jays, 0-for-4 with 3 Ks. So, like, even if Gorman was struggling the way Gorman was to begin the year, I don't think this would be as complicated of a discussion. But it's gotten to that point, and I agree with Grant. Like, that is a good problem to have in a lot of ways. I want to answer a couple of questions here about Donovan and the Yankees and then Jordan Walker and his future positional viability. But before I do that, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about DraftKings Pick 6. DraftKings Pick 6 is great throughout the baseball season to take your player takes and try to turn them into cash through the baseball season, and you've still got a little bit more time for basketball to do so. You can download the DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5 and get $50 in Pick 6 credits. DraftKings Pick 6, it's better payouts, bigger wins, only with DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Got a few trade questions we can touch on here, but I want to highlight this point from C. Ramirez. God forbid a player goes through a slump nowadays. Lars will get hot. Everyone will love him again. Great job, guys. Yeah, I think, again, with Nootbaar, he maybe for any player that goes over 23 with 13 Ks, the fans are going to riot against that player. I don't care who it is, and rightfully so. But, let's try to keep a short-term range with that rioting. Let's go. Right now, I never want to see this guy bat again. But understand that you're not always going to feel that way. Lars Nootbaar has 5 years of a track record where he's been pretty dang solid offensively. This year, he's been below league average, but a couple good games would turn that right around. And average is not the enemy. People, why are we talking about Lars Nootbaar? He's an average player. An average player with average defense wins you an average amount of games, and then you just got to find somewhere to be above average. Instead of winning 80 games, you could win 85 or 90. That's how you build a roster. It takes average players to do that. I think Lars Nootbaar is an above average player. I know that he's not currently playing like it. Joseph wants to know, Grant, Yankees fans drilling over Donovan to lead off for them. Would you trade him for future assets? My answer is no. I'm curious for your answer, though, and then I might expand a little bit beyond just a simple no.
I would say no, because it feels like Brendan Donovan can be that kind of bridge the gap between this youth, and he's only, I believe, 27. So he's
28.
Still 28. He's still young.
Let me look.
You would think
28,
that
yeah.
You're hoping the way this goes is that this will be the worst Cardinal team in the next 5 years. And if that's the case, you need Brendan Donovan on that team. So if you're continuing this upward trajectory with the young guys, I think Brendan Donovan's important in that. But on the same note, if the Yankees were to offer you something ridiculous and blow you away with 3 or 4 top prospects, I think it would be a tough no.
I think that's a fair way to frame it, because Brendan Donovan is up for a contract after a couple more years of arbitration. The Cardinals bungled his first year of arbitration, in my opinion. They should not have played such hardball with a player that's a heart and soul kind of guy for this team. They should have offered him the damn contract extension. I'm still hoping Chaim Bloom will kind of rectify that and do so in the offseason once maybe the DeWitts give him a better idea of, hey, here's what payroll needs to look like. Here's what team building needs to look like. Because this year for 2025, that was kind of the year for the Cardinals to not tear it down, but to like kick every can down the road one year and evaluate, right? Like Lars Nootbaar, a good example of that. You could have extended him, or you could say, oh, man, he hasn't played a full season and shown durability and success while doing it. We're seeing him stay off the IL this year, but the performance has dropped. Okay, that's something to know before you offer a guy a big bag of money. And so in a lot of ways, I think the Cardinals were right to kind of play it out with certain guys. Donovan's one of them that I didn't feel that way about. I thought you were going to get better performance from Donovan another year removed from his UCL repair. And I felt like the time was probably February to do something. Now, let's say they don't trade him, and then I'll get into the trade idea. Now it costs more. Exactly right. The money is going to, if you want to do that extension, maybe he's still amenable to it. He says, hey, all that's water under the bridge as long as we make a fair contract offer now. I'm down. He was down then to do a contract offer, and the Cardinals just didn't offer him one. And again, I don't think it was as much about Donovan as it was about the state of the team and like just needing to kick some cans down the road to see what is this Cardinals team going to be? Because if what Grant said is true, this is the worst Cardinal record of the next 5 years, then that means the retool was a smashing success and they have a foundation. Yeah, 100%. And I'm like, we don't know whether or not that's the case. I would say there's probably going to be a year. They'll win 83 games this year, and there will be a year in there where they only win 80. Like, that's certainly plausible. But I think your hope is not unfounded in the way that we've seen a foundation develop for the Cardinals this year that maybe people didn't think was going to be there. And so that being said, would still be on board with extending Donovan as soon as early possible and having him be a tentpole type of player for the next iteration, as you said, Grant, bridging the gap. Let's talk about, though, a trade offer. My suspicion is, and Yankees fans do not represent Yankees front office or any other front office, but my guess is Yankees fans look at a Brendan Donovan and think, that's actually a really good player that people across baseball don't realize how good he is. We could probably get him for cheaper than we should. No, that's not the way it's going to work with this player. You will have to pay the sticker shock price in, like you said, top prospects to get the Cardinals to consider it, is my belief. If they were 10 games under 500 today, might be a different conversation, and they might have looked to guys like Nootbaar and Donovan and said, they're close to ARB. This is maybe the time we can get the most for them because another team isn't just trading for a rental. They're getting guys for multiple years. I think that the Cardinals end up holding Donovan as they should, but I get a little bit queasy thinking about the offseason. Do they go back to ARB or do they say, we're sorry, we're going to give you a contract. That's what's most interesting to me. But I think the value proposition isn't there. And this is just my hunch, right, on a Donovan trade, because teams around baseball know he's good, but I don't know if other teams recognize he's good in a way that he's worth paying, like he should be the top traded name on the market, and you pay those multiple top 100 prospects for, because he's that good and can help you win games to that degree. I just don't think, Grant, that when you think about what Yankees fans think, or certainly what maybe even front offices think, this is not a guy that like, oh, I'm on MLB The Show and he's a 85 overall that I think is better than that, so I can get him for a cheap trade proposition.
Yeah.
Nope. The Cardinals know what they have, in my opinion.
I think so too. I think he's valued very high in the Cardinals organization. I think it would take a lot, but to my point earlier, if that a lot is met, I still would not love it, but I would have to look at the offer. I think.
Sure.
I think that's what it would come down to. I would not put him on the untouchable list.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is.
No.
Like, who could possibly be untouchable? Because you could say the best player in this organization, like the best young ascending talent, whether that's Mason Wynn or whoever you want to, whatever you want to say. If somebody comes up to you and offers their version of that, who's already a little more proven or has a little more team control, like if it's Mason Wynn for Paul Skeens, you're like, well, wait a minute. Well, you know what I mean? Like nobody's offering you that trade, but that's why I think Mozeliak is right when he has always said, you always listen. There's no real untouchable. Like that's right. But what the context that fans a lot of times miss when he says things like that is like, the trade's not going to happen. Nobody's beating down our door to offer us,
Aaron Judge, Robert Pujols.
Like nobody's doing that. Yeah. Like it's just not going to happen. So in that sense, sure, Donovan's not untouchable, but I also would be surprised to see, and he's the archetype of a player that would be traded, going to arbitration, only a couple years left. Like there are elements of that where having a career year, there are elements of that you would consider, but it's not, I don't think it's the Cardinals going, all right, we've got this Donovan to be traded. It's like you hang up the phone until they offer you something so outlandish that you're like, okay, they clearly understand the value that this player has, and we get the years of control to try to find our next Donovan. It's a risky proposition. I agree with you, though. You always listen. To Bradley's question, I do not believe Walker ever ends up back at third base. I don't think he would have stuck there anyway. I'm not sure defensively he would have stuck there at third base as it was. So I don't see that probably happening. If he makes a move, again, it's eventually to first base, which I'm not convinced would be a great fit either. I think he's a good right fielder. Like, I don't think you need to mess with him defensively. It might be other names like Ivan Herrera. He might have to find a way to play an outfield spot. He might have to figure out more first base time as you get deeper into the Contreras contract, things like that. That's something that I kind of look at. Joseph wants to know, trade Gorman or Newt for Alcantara. Let me know if I'm wrong on this, Grant. Alcantara, I believe, free agent after this year. You're not trading anybody. You're not trading for a guy who's about to be a free agent. If the Cardinals make and he's not been good, right? If the Cardinals are making a trade to buy, it's with a guy, in my opinion, that also is under control for next year, because this team could make the playoffs, but you're not selling out, future assets for a playoff situation, in my opinion.
I think the only guys you would buy under short-term contracts would be like if you think of a few years ago when they traded for John Lester and Jose Quintana, pretty cheap deals where you're giving up not a super high-end prospect. I know Lane Thomas had a good season over there in Washington, but I still am not freaking out that they give him up for John Lester. Like, I think that if you're buying a guy, it's a vet with half a year that's really cheap.
Yeah, and to that point, like at the time, Lane Thomas was in a post-COVID haze, hitting 150, and like they didn't have playing time for him. They couldn't figure out what was going on, and so it made sense to make that type of deal. You might say there was a moment in the season where you felt that way about Nolan Gorman, where you'd say, yeah, we'll just get something for him because we don't view him as part of this for next year. But I would say he's at least working his way back into like, let's see more of what that looks like before we say, no, you're not trading Sajacy for pitching. You're chilling on Sajacy, and he'll be he'll be on the team next year. He'll be either playing 3 or 4 times a week, on the bench the other days. I think it's just 1 year early for the Cardinals to hamper his development by having him come up and sit. I think it'll be a different conversation next year. Fedde, Matz, easiest to trade than Maton, Helsley. Grant, it's still going to be an interesting question. Will the Cardinals trade away guys on expiring contracts, or will they decide that they need all those guys to try and compete this year? Right? Is there a number for you, like as you get into the drop dead date, whether that's July 20th or whatever it is, how many games above 500 the Cardinals have to be for you to be like, I don't want to trade any of these guys? Or are you always open for business depending on what the offers are out there?
Well, I don't think the games above 500 matter. You could be on pace to win 90 games and still 7 games out of a playoff spot. I mean,
if you're going to win 90 games, wild card.
I'm being a little dramatic,
okay.
But I'm saying that if you're within, I'll put it 3 to 4 games of the division or wild card, I'd be okay with not trading. Anything can happen in August, September. I think too, Cardinals fans, maybe I don't think the value for Fedde, Matz, and Maton are really that high. I think Helsley is the guy. Obviously, if you trade him, you could get a guy that would change that. You could get a prospect that could be an impact one day in the MLB. Fedde, Matz, and Maton would be like lottery tickets. So I think Cardinals fans would have to ask themselves, would they rather make a run at a wild card spot and let's say they get in the wild card and lose? Would you rather that or get rid of Fedde, Matz, and Maton and get some middling to low level prospects? I think that
you could get multiple. You could get if you said we were all in on trading, our short term guys, you could get multiple of those lottery tickets. And I think Tekoa Roby was kind of a lottery ticket. Like you think back to the 2023 deadline, I think they had maybe a little more talent in a Flaherty than you would say in a Matz, but it's very similar situations because there are guys on expiring contracts. Jordan Montgomery, same conversation at the time. I think that there's maybe a little less value in this group, but Helsley is more valuable than anybody they traded that summer. So, yeah, I could see an argument to be made that you just go all in on that. But here's your thing, Grant. I'm opposite of you. I want to know how many games above 500. I don't care about how close you are to a wild card because right now they're like a half game out of a wild card or something.
They're a game out.
Yeah, the Padres are 39 and 34. The Brewers and Reds are a half game behind that. The Cardinals are a full game behind the Padres, who are currently that third spot. I don't want to sell out and say, hey, keep it together when you're maybe at 500, but you can say, well, we're 3 games out of it.
True.
I look at the record because that'll tell me if you're a good team or not. More so that the other stuff can work itself out in 2 months. I think it's probably got to be a combination of both, right? But that's sort of what I'm looking at it to say is they got to be good before I'm convinced that they're good. Let's say that makes sense.
Let's say they stay on this path where you enter the trade deadline 3 to 4 games above 500, and let's say the trade deadline was tomorrow. I think what you would see is a little bit of a combination of selling and staying put. I think they would listen to offers for all 4 of those guys, and I bet 2 or 3 of them would get traded. But look at what the Tigers just did. They sold everybody and then wasn't it the ALCS last year, or did they just make the DS? They still went on a crazy run, made the playoffs, won a series. You have enough young guys, and I think enough guys that you feel confident pitching that even if you trade some guys, it's not blowing it up. It's not saying, okay, we'll make the playoffs next year. I think even with trading some, there will be still a chance to compete. But who knows? They could get hot again in June in this next month, and all of a sudden they're 8 games above 500, and they're 2 games back of the Central, and they have a second wild card spot. Then nobody would be saying, let's trade those guys. They would all want to buy another reliever, another bat, because playoffs are fun, and they haven't been fun lately in St. Louis. So, yeah, that's my spiel about it. I think if you get hot, you stay put.
Yeah, this comment says expiring contracts should always be traded unless you're destined for the playoffs. That's what we're trying to figure out. Are they destined to make the playoffs, or is that more of a pipe dream this year? We'll see. I do not agree with this comment to say too many Donovan types in the organization. No, I would take 9. I would take 9 of them and play against your best all-star team, and I would win. I would win more times than you think. Brendan Donovan is a great player. I'm just telling you. So,
again, it's a good problem to have. I think that's what – too many is not a bad thing.
Yeah. And JJ Weatherholt could be a Brendan Donovan level player. I think we should pump the brakes a little bit on believing Sajisi will be there. I don't think he's quite on that level. I think he could be a really good contributor. But no, it's the same thing people said years ago when it was like Gorman and Donovan and whoever else. Like, no, someone doesn't have to go. Like, you do need to kind of iron some things out and make a trade probably that makes some like roster construction sense, but you don't have to rush into that and give up value as a result of it. I just don't think that is no, like to answer the question, no, I don't agree. I couldn't disagree more. And along those lines, I know we had Randy and Matt Rocchio talking the other day about, well, would you trade Herrera if push came to shove because of this positional kind of logjam that you have? Well, you could be a fit in Boston. I am not looking to find where could my best trade assets fit really good for somebody else. That's a Boston problem. If anybody wants to offer the moon and stars for a player like Herrera, whose bat has proven already at the big league level that it's legit, no, he doesn't have a position, but you can find ways to still make that work. I want to hear from them what they're offering me. I'm not offering them because they need a DH. That's just not the way that you go about it. And I don't believe that you trade a guy like Herrera with all that team control before you've even tried to see what does it look like for him to play outfield? What does it look like for him to play first base? This was a year where, yeah, they wanted him to catch, and they came out of the gates, and you saw right away there just wasn't comfort with it. He was being subbed out for Pajes when he did start, if it was a close game, and he was raking, and they're like, okay, after the injury, let's just let him rake, and he's continued largely to do that. So for me, we can end on this, Grant. Your thoughts on the idea of what you would do with Herrera, because it is a logjam. We get that, not only in the middle infield, but at DH, but you can have time to figure that out. I don't think it's like life or death that they have a logjam right now with too many DH types. That's okay. Life will go on. They've got good hitters.
He's an all-star DH, and if he's going to keep hitting like an all-star DH, play him in DH, and you can figure out everyone else. That's how I feel about it. If guys hit well enough, you can do whatever you want. You can put them at DH. You can plug them in at first. Like, Herrera will be fine. I don't think you need to give him up unless, to your point, you get the moon and stars from the Red Sox. But I think he should. I don't know if he'll be an all-star, but I think he's at the level of being an all-star DH right now. The fan votes and stuff are weird, and he missed some time. But he's the best hitter on your team. He plays DH. That's fine. I have no issue with it.
Yeah, and I get it. Burleson, you feel like you could make the same argument for him, but time will come. They'll figure out who sinks, who swims from this group. And when you prune a couple of names off for 2026, that gives more opportunity to the ones that are on. And so that's what I think is probably destined to happen there. We'll end on this one, actually. This is a White Sox fan. Luis Robert trade for the Cardinals because he is under team control for next year, and maybe the White Sox would eat a little bit of money, would be great. But I think Victor Scott, you're looking to see him try to fight through some of this rather than look for the first reason to send him down. Robert's stats are terrible. Like, he's a sub 600 OPS, but he's got 21 stolen bases. I just think it would be fun. Somebody is going to trade for him, and it's not going to cost a lot because of his contract and his production. And they're going to get a bounce back from Luis Robert. I just wanted to put that out into the ether. You can comment on that, Grant. But I'm not trading anything of substance for him, but I do think he's a fun player who needs to get out of Chicago. Somebody needs to take a chance on him.
I think the change of scenery for him will do very well whenever he does go. I would assume in the next month.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's just going to be one of those big money teams that says, I don't care. His contract is bad for his production for next year, but it's short term. And, maybe we figure out a way to fix him. That if you do, you've got another kind of star caliber player on your team who maybe he's just pouting because he's with the White Sox and they aren't playing well. Like, I don't know. You would like to think that a player would not do that, but you never know. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We've gone 40 minutes here on this edition of Card Central 365 here on STL Sports Central. Appreciate you, Grant. Thank you all to everybody out there in listener land for viewing on YouTube. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Quick programming note, I believe with the doubleheader today, there's not going to be a post-game after Game 1. We're going to have a double post-game after Game 2 discussing the entire day of Cardinals White Sox baseball here on STL Sports Central. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you to Graybar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs. And, of course, all content here on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. For Grant, I'm Brenden. we're done for now, and we'll talk to you after a couple of baseball games today.